O'Leary came along. Daniel O'Leary was an Irish immigrant, and he came to America in 1866 with absolutely nothing. And he took a job selling Bibles door to door. And he thought that would give him good training to become a walker. And so he became a walker, and he started mimicking a lot of the achievements that Weston had done. And he ended up breaking a lot of his records. He ended up breaking his 100-mile record, his 20 most miles in 24-hour record, and eventually they ended up meeting in 1876, I believe it was. And O'Leary ended up beating, it was 1875, and O'Leary ended up beating him. And then they went to England and put on a performance and trounced all of the British walkers, which the British were just incensed because that was their sport. You know, it'd be like them coming over here and beating us at football or baseball or something like that. Daniel O'Leary seemed to be a lot more interested in promoting the professional aspects of endurance walking. And he was always looking for the next deal. So in other words, when he took on Weston, now he and Weston became these rivals, but O'Leary proved the dominant walker, and he would win $15,000, $20,000 on a big walk back when $500 was your average annual income. And he lived in Chicago, and he was, to Chicago back then, what Mike Ditka became 100 years later. He was that big. He went for 3 years, he was undefeated, and there were all these challengers, but nobody, not only did he never get beat, nobody could really come close to him. And so at one point he decided he wanted to expand the profile of the professionalism of the sport. And when I first started researching this, I read about a guy named Frank Hart. And Frank Hart was the national champion. He won the O'Leary belt, which O'Leary put up the money to go to the national 6-day walking champion. And I always wondered, now, how could Frank Hart win this national championship, win the O'Leary belt, when Frank Hart was black? Frank Hart was born in Jamaica. His real name was Fred Hitchborn. He was born in Jamaica, and he ended up in New York somehow. And I don't know how O'Leary found him, but O'Leary found him and realized, hey, this is a way to expand the sport. And he trained him, and he was actually called Black Dan, because the newspapers labeled him that because these two guys were so close. So newspapers called him Black Dan. And I always wondered how he did this, how he accomplished what he did. And it was because he had the backing of Daniel O'Leary. And Daniel O'Leary was the instrument in getting women's walking started in America.
My grandfather's clock was too large for the shelf, so it stood 90 years.